With a few weeks left in this work period, we're seeing nothing more than the governing by crisis by our Republican friends. Nation's highway system will run out of money in just a few weeks, and we have an outline of a plan that the Republicans are talking about that none of us have seen. There's been a little talk about it. The sham appropriations process is going on at the same time. The appropriations process is broken, and that's an understatement. Why? With all the terrible stuff they did to the appropriation bill dealing with the Interior, EPA, our national park system, and on and on. That wasn't bad enough. Then they had to bring up on that issue a Confederate flag issue. Of course, that was the downfall of the appropriation process as of now. They were afraid to vote on that. They were afraid to denounce the Confederate flag. So we keep going on and on with this government by crisis. Now, we need to have an issue resolved soon. And what is that? We need to have a budget, a way of going forward with all these bills, these appropriation bills. Republicans are saying that you don't have to accept what I've said. We have the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the House. We have 3 or 4 subcommittee chairs over there, Republicans, of course, who are saying, why don't we sit down and negotiate? But there's been nothing, zero, and nothing. So I assume they're going back and reading their old talking points on closing the government again. Remind everyone, they closed the government before. It went on for weeks. And when the final vote came, 2/3 of the House Republicans voted to keep the government closed. How about that? So they shouldn't look at their talking points. It didn't work then. Sequestration's not working now. We should sit down and negotiate, as the chairman of the the chairman of the Appropriations Committee said in the House. We need to sit down and work through this, and can't do it at the last minute. Senator Durbin?
33 times the Republicans have asked us for short-term extensions on the Highway Trust Fund. As Senator Boxer said at a press conference last week, would you take out a mortgage on a home if it were only a 6-month mortgage? That's all they're offering, 6 months of a Highway Trust Fund. You can't build America, you certainly can't build our highways, and you can't create the thousands of jobs that come with a good Highway Trust Fund package that is multi-year, 3, 5, or 6 years. And yet they fail time and again to even offer us an alternative. It's like the minority leader said, they hint that they've got something in the works, but we've heard that song before. So many jobs are at stake. Let me also just add as well, the Ex-Im Bank now is officially closed down. The authorization was not extended. That needs to be addressed, absolutely. And if we come back here in September after the August recess, you know what September is like. We only have a few days of session during the course of that month, and then we face the end of the fiscal year and the possibility that we're into a CR because of the failure of Republican leadership in the House and Senate to be willing to sit down with the Democrats and with the President to work out our nation's budget challenges. I don't understand how Senator McConnell and the House leader, Boehner, can govern from crisis to crisis and feel that they're going to lead this nation forward. It's time for decisive leadership. It's time for us to have a Highway Trust Fund, an Ex-Im Bank, and a budget plan that works for America.
What do you think of the Iran deal?
Okay. Well, mind if we finish?
Yes, go right ahead, sorry.
Okay, well, start of another week. Still, Republicans are no closer to resolving the 2 big crises that loom just around the corner. We're less than 3 short months from a Republican showdown over the budget, just over 3 short weeks away from a Republican highway shutdown at the height of the summer construction season. Hard-right Republicans are trying to take us down twin paths to disaster, but we all know it doesn't have to be that way. On government funding, Republican leaders should heed the wise call from their members to begin negotiations immediately with Democrats to relieve the devastating cuts. We've heard cries from House Democrats, House Republicans, Senate Democrats. Where's Leader McConnell? On government funding, on every moment between now and the end of September that Republicans don't spend time at the table with Democrats is a moment wasted. And thus far, they've also twiddled their thumbs on an even more urgent deadline, preventing a shutdown of the transportation projects across the country. Just today, we heard the Department of Transportation warn states that the spigot of funding that helps repair aging roads and bridges, supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs along the way, is about to be turned off. And what's the Republican Senate plan to prevent a shutdown? We've laid out what we're interested in. Long-term increase in funding. We'll look at what they show us. So far, they've shown us nothing. It's time for the Republican leaders to abandon this culture of crisis that threatens to throw the country and the economy into disarray in the coming weeks and months.
Senator Murray.
Well, another week has passed, and Republican leaders are still refusing to sit down and negotiate the bipartisan deal that we all know we need to make sure our government is working for middle-class families. We're now just weeks away from a highway shutdown, and we are less than 3 months away from a completely unnecessary budget crisis. And still we find Republican leaders standing in their partisan corner, refusing to join us at the table. We all know what needs to happen, and there's simply no reason for delay. In a divided government, there are going to have to be bipartisan negotiations, and there's going to have to be bipartisan deals. No one can say it's my way or the highway, and no one can simply dictate a path and refuse to negotiate or to compromise. That is the lesson Republicans should have learned in 2013 when they took us to the brink of a government shutdown and then allowed their Tea Party to push them over that brink and the country over the edge. They hurt our families, they hurt our economy, and then they finally caved to the pressure, came to the table, and we were able to reach a bipartisan deal and avoid a crisis. That is what we need to do again. We did it before, we need to do it now. Democrats are at the table, we are ready, and we are waiting.
Yes.
Senator, what do you think of the Iran deal? Thank you.
Document's 100 pages long. My staff hasn't read it. I haven't read it. I talked to the president last night. And I think what I'm going to do, and I recommend this to all senators, let's find out what we have first. I don't know what's in the agreement. I have a broad outline of the agreement. I want to find out what is going to transpire with some hearings the Republicans said they're going to hold. And we're going to have briefings from the White House that will be extensive in nature. So I'm going to just wait and see.
Senator Reid, based on what you know now, are you concerned that there are 67 senators in this body who would vote to disapprove that deal?
After what I've just said, I think it would be somewhat illogical for me to say yes or no. I'm going to wait until I see what's in the agreement.
Senator Reid,
Yes.
Republicans are so vocal in their opposition to this deal. Does that give you pause? Does that make you think that perhaps the administration could have done better?
It gives me pause to think they should look and read the agreement first. I can't imagine. They haven't read the agreement. There's been very little leaked about what's in the agreement, and I just think it's unfair for them to start charging out, determining now how they're going to vote on this. I think it's, first of all, we know what the votes are going to be, so no, it doesn't give me pause. It gives me pause to think we shouldn't legislate this way. We should legislate with the knowledge of what we're going to be voting on or against.
Senator Reid, you had lunch this afternoon with Secretary Clinton.
She got there late. She didn't get lunch. Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about what you talked about, and also
Sure.
will you invite any other Democratic presidential candidate to speak at your lunch?
Well, Senator Sanders he's already going to. I've invited him, so he'll come and make a presentation to us in the next few weeks. Secretary Clinton was, of course, articulate. The caucus felt very warmly. She got several rounds of standing applause. She talked about issues. She talked about climate change. She talked about what families need in America today. She talked about how important it was that we do make sure that we understand that America is more than the urban centers of our country. She talked, and I've only touched a few of the issues. Her answers were concise but complete, and I was, as I always am, hearing her talk, extremely impressed.
Mr. Lehman, if there could be a
Yes, she did. Yep. And yes, she basically said that she had worked on this herself a lot, and she said what I just said to everyone here and what I've recommended my caucus. Just let's find out for sure what's in the agreement.
You do endorse her candidacy?
Pardon me?
You endorse the former secretary's candidacy?
I am somewhat modest in my, not on everything, but I think that I think my endorsement doesn't mean a lot now. Hopefully it'll mean a little bit later. And I've chosen not to endorse her right now. So that's the way it is. Everyone knows what a fan I am of her and her husband. And I'm sure at the right time I'll make the right decision. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh, okay, that's why.
Senator Reid, could you support the short-term highway bill that goes until the end of the year? That you said that you don't support
Yep.
a short-term bill.
I agree with Senator Durbin. I think this short-term stuff we've been doing on everything, that's the Republicans' mantra. Never solve a problem if you can stall the problem, and that's what they've been doing. As I don't know what the House is going to do. I am told they're going to pass a short-term bill probably as early as tomorrow. I'll take a look and see what's in it, see what the pay-fors are in it. We know that Senator McConnell's talking about this vague document that he's talking about, but I think we feel over here, Democrats, that until we know definitely what he's talking about with a long-term deal, we're not going to sign on to that. We do know that one of his proposals takes into consideration a tremendous whack at federal employees. Federal employees have been whacked enough, and that can be part of no long-term, short-term, medium-term agreement on highways or anything else. So I'll see what else he has. I've been given the understanding what he's trying to do on pensions, and I will not accept that at all. And I'm confident my caucus would not. So we'll just wait and see what he comes up with. But until he comes up with something, we're not going to rush and sign on to it.
Leader McConnell, have you gotten any commitment, or sorry, Leader Reid, have you gotten
They look
any
alike.
commitment from Leader McConnell on an XM vote this month, whether it's separate or related to the highway bill?
Made no commitment to me. No. Thank you, everybody.